Welcome back to the final segment on today's program here on Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Ray Guo. We'll continue our conversation with Mr. James Boyle, who is the general manager of Bao Brothers Trading here in Taiwan. Jim, you've been in Taiwan many, many years, and you've seen how the island has changed from the time you first arrived in 1968 to today, 2010. How would you then, for somebody who has accumulated such extensive experiences living and working in Taiwan, what kinds of recommendations or suggestions that you would make to make Taiwan, a lot more attractive as a place to live and a more competitive place, at least on the regional level, as a place to work?
I think in terms of quality of life, Taiwan is very much a surprise to a lot of expatriates.
Yes.
I've seen surveys of expatriates around Asia that rank Taiwan very, very highly.
Yes.
And I think with good reason when you compare it to other cities around the region.
Exactly.
It's a great place to live.
Yeah, the pollution is a lot better, the traffic is a lot better.
Traffic's much better, the MRT is very convenient.
Yes, and within an hour, for example, from the city of Taipei, you could go to the beach. Within an hour, you can go up to the mountains.
Yeah.
It was very convenient.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
So the quality of life issues, I think, are being addressed, and they're improving constantly. And I think one thing that the government needs to do more is promote that. Let people know that that is the case.
Okay, good.
In terms of a working environment, President Ma said just the other day, he pointed out that, as we all know, the education level is extremely high. Professionalism is extremely high. The financial resources are all here. So all of those things are ready to go.
Okay.
There are a few things that might help. I think, for example, reviewing tax policy.
Okay.
And I hate to get too focused on something like that, but tax levels, particularly for individuals, is quite high, and for corporate rates also, compared to a lot of countries, it's quite high. So, if you want to attract investment,
that certainly needs to be addressed.
It's something that has to be addressed. There's a flow of talent to the mainland.
Yes,
of course, which
exodus. Yes.
Can't be helped.
No.
But that puts more of a stress on educating the people that are still here, the younger kids now, if you will, and making sure that they're going to be a very productive, innovative part of the workforce in the future. So there is a bit more pressure on the education system, perhaps. But I think that's being addressed also.
Okay.
I think that the government over the time has done a very good job in identifying some of the challenges.
Yes.
Maybe we need to address them a little bit differently. The Regional Operations Center didn't quite pan out the way I had expected to see it. I thought it was a very good idea, but I'm not sure that how it was promoted or encouraged.
Yeah, and people are now telling me that very similar concept, I can't say it's a carbon copy, but very similar concept is being applied in the city of Tianjin in China today as a regional operations center. But certainly, like you said, I think, I'm not alone in that, sentiment that I think a lot of people will agree with me that in terms of developing Taiwan into a regional operations center certainly felt short of what the public expectations were when the concept was first made public. But another issue is certainly for somebody like you coming from the U.S., would you think that there are things that we could do, to make Taiwan a little more international? Beginning with the language, the usage of English as a more common language, the road signs, certainly they've been improving, but I don't think all the way there yet. And we have a lot of kids, for example, learn to speak English when they were younger, but according to a very recent survey, that Taiwan's high school and college students, their language proficiency in English is the poorest, among the poorest in Asia, in neighboring countries. So how would you recommend in terms of making Taiwan a lot more international, other than making the program like Taiwan Outlook a lot more accessible to viewers in Taiwan?
The education is the key, obviously.
Yes.
but it's I don't want to overemphasize that point. I mean, Taiwan is a unique place.
Okay.
It is the only Chinese-speaking nation that is really a truly democratic country.
Democracy. Yes.
It's done some phenomenal things in the past, and I think that that's something that needs to be touted more.
Okay.
If you want to attract international attention, you want to internationalize. It's not just through the road signs in English.
No.
I mean, the students do have to increase their capacity with English. Of course. That's fine. But there's got to be a strength. There's got to be an identity, a positive attitude that we reflect.
Okay.
That will help us attract the attention.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the other side of the straits,
it's also moving in that direction.
It's moving in that direction and excluding us wherever possible, and that's a challenge that most countries do not have to face.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at something like the tourism effort,
yes,
that's attracting not so much. It's not investment focused at all, but it's tourism driven. And it's bringing a lot more people to Taiwan.
Yes.
And 10 years ago, there was almost no budget for this type of thing.
No.
But they've determined that that's important to Taiwan, and it's elevating the visibility.
Yes.
And the image that Taiwan has around the world.
Exactly.
So the investment that's put into that, I think, will pay off very well. So to internationalize, maybe to internationalize, we need to focus on who we are.
Okay.
To
develop identity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think your notion is very, very useful for a lot of, not just for government, but also for the private sector as well. And also the fact that you mentioned about tourism. Tourism used to be one of the major area of responsibilities when you were the trade director for Oregon. And how would you think that, in terms of, there's a lot more resources now being poured into the tourism sector. How would you think that we can make Taiwan, more attractive as a tourist destination? For example, maybe upgrading some of the facilities, some of the transportation networks, the links, in and out of the tourist destinations.
Well, I hate to be a kind of a naysayer up front. I think to a degree, the tourism industry has been sacrificed early on in Taiwan's development.
Yeah, it wasn't, emphasized.
It was never a priority. It was always production. If you look at, Taiwan has beautiful beaches everywhere. But if you look at the 70s, 80s, 90s even, when we were developing electricity sources, nuclear power.
That's where they're located.
Fulong Beach.
Yes.
Jinshan is a very nice beach. There's a nuclear power plant there. Nanwan and Kending.
Yes.
So those were all sacrificed for power and for economic growth. So now we're going back and trying to recognize and remedy that, if you will. And that's a bit of a challenge. But as I say, also developing the personality. Taiwan has a lot of different personalities.
Of course.
If you look at the way Singapore does it, they celebrate all of their differences.
Yes.
And I think Taiwan has to continue to do that, improve on that. But one thing that I was a little dismayed almost to see last time I was in Kending, every store wanted to be like Phuket or Bali or Hawaii. Okay. But there weren't that many that wanted to be like Kending.
Yes.
So we want to celebrate who we are and what we are. And we don't have to reach out and copy people all the time.
Okay. So that's a recommendation, certainly. I think a lot of people will find that, to be very close to their hearts as well. And finally, Jim, I want to ask you, if there are some viewers out there watching our program today and listening to you for the past hour, and they're thinking, hey, Taiwan is a wonderful place to, work and, and live, and maybe even raise a family, what would be your word of advice to these people who are watching our program and thinking of planning on the trip to Taiwan, maybe first as a tourist, but later on as a student or as a professional worker, or maybe some in the future raise a family here in Taiwan? What would be your word of advice?
I'd encourage them to take a look.
Okay, take a look in terms.
Take a look in terms of the quality of life.
Okay.
If you've got a family, you've got education opportunities.
Okay.
English language opportunities.
Of course.
You've got European schools. You've got your family life is safe and secure.
Okay.
Which in a lot of other places it's a lot harder to say that.
Okay.
Professional growth is there. Opportunities for business are there. The people in Taiwan are the friendliest people I've met in Asia.
Exactly.
So that's always one of the things that keeps drawing me back to Taiwan is it's just so easy to live here. The quality of life is good. People are great.
Yes.
So I would encourage anybody to come take a look. Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of overcoming the language barrier, the difficulties, would you recommend pre-arrival language training course first?
It depends on the time you have to put into it.
Okay.
More important, I think there used to be a TV show on in Taiwan called 每日一句.
Okay.
Do you remember that show?
Yes.
A sentence a day.
Okay.
If you can learn a sentence a day, a word a day, a phrase a day.
Okay.
Before you know it.
Yeah, you've accumulated quite a bit of foundation.
That's
yes.
right.
And how about the food? Certainly Taiwan is now a lot more cosmopolitan,
yes.
a lot more international. You get a selection of different kinds of cuisines around the world.
Oh, yeah.
And certainly different from the time when you first arrived. But still, I mean, in terms of getting used to the local cuisines, it may still take some doing for some people. How would you recommend that in terms of preparation?
Well, I think around the world, we're a lot more familiar with Chinese food than different Chinese cuisines than we were when I first came over. So I don't think the leap is quite as great for many people now.
Today, yes.
Yeah.
And certainly in terms of other things, any other recommendations or word of advice that you can give them before they come here?
Keep your eyes open, enjoy the experience.
Okay.
It's a wonderful place to be.
Yeah, certainly wonderful to have you here in Taiwan for all these years,
Thank you.
Jim. And certainly have you as a friend. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being on the program. We wish you all the best in your business and your family life.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching our program. I'll see you next time on Microview Television. Thank you.